How's it going, everyone? Thanks for tuning in. Today I'm going to be showing you a safe method to crack your cards out of slabs. I've got a PSA, a BGS, and a CSG to show you. And if you watched my last mail on Hobby Talk, I did mention that I was going to do an updated video. Interestingly enough, I saw a recent video from Chasing Cardboard where they're cracking a 52 mantle out. He's using the crack down the middle technique, which I'm actually not going to do here because I don't find that to be the most safe, at least if you're more inexperienced with doing this. While it's definitely a viable option, and I've actually used it on BGS slabs, I'm going to be showing you a different method that I find to be safer. And now everybody has their own methods to use, but this method I'm going to show you today is by far the safest that I've found over the years. And if you haven't watched Chasing Cardboard, I definitely suggest going over and taking a look at their channel. That was a very entertaining video, even if it had me on the edge of my seat. And I won't spoil the end for you, but yeah, it was a really entertaining video, and I find those guys' videos in general to be pretty entertaining. So if you did want to skip ahead to just the cracking, feel free. I want to put chapters in this so you can skip ahead to PSA, BGS, CSG, whatever you're looking at to crack out. But I did want to first go over the reasons why you might want to crack your card. So most of the time when I'm cracking a card, I'm doing it because I want to throw it in a binder. I mean, that's probably 90% of what I'm doing. So this one right here, it's going to be going in one of my 90s binders for Nuggets parallels. And so I'm going to get that one out of there. This one, same deal. I have a McDice binder that this one's going to go into. And then CSG, I have a ton of these Gallinari Topps Chrome refractors, but I figured we'd show you how to crack them out. I've never actually cracked a CSG, so we'll see how that goes. But that might be a lot of the reason that you want to crack your own card, you know, as you want to do it for your PC. I also like to get them into mags. A lot of times I have like 2-row boxes that I store cards in. And just for consistency's sake, sometimes I'll crack them out from the slab and put them in a mag because, again, you know, it's for my PC. I don't necessarily need it graded. I'm not trying to sell it down the road. Third reason you might want to crack them out is you're trying to cross it. Maybe you're going to cross a BGS 8.5, see if you can get a PSA 9. That's not really my thing, but I know a lot of people do that. So if this video is helpful to people that want to cross over their cards, hey, that's a great thing. Hopefully I can give you some pointers and you can do it safely. And I do want to caution people that there is always a chance that you mess up your card by cracking it out of the slab. I mean, that's just the reality of it. Even if you follow this safer method that I have here, it doesn't mean that there's a 100% success rate. I've definitely messed up my fair share of cards in the past. I mean, honestly, that's only a couple cards. Maybe you want to try on a lower grade card, one that you're not as concerned about if you do mess up, just to get that practice in before you go and break out your, 97 PMG or something like that. So to get started with this, you really only need two things. A pair of tile cutters and a flathead screwdriver. It's really all you need. Now, I have these giant tile cutters that I got years back. You don't have to get something crazy like this, but I will warn you, it's going to be a lot easier to do with something larger like this. If you look at these tile cutters as well, they have kind of like a rougher cutting edge here. It'll be a lot easier to crack out than, say, your typical wire cutters. I see a lot of people use these wire cutters, and if you get a larger size wire cutter, it's not so bad. I've seen people successful with wire cutters, but something small like this that you might have laying around, probably not your best bet. I would get something a little larger, and specifically tile cutters work really well. But yeah, there's really no rhyme or reason to it. We're just going to be cracking into the case, so whatever gets the job done. You might have something else that works a little bit better for you. Let me know if you do in the comments down below. I also want to show you something else that I use. I used to do this in my garage mainly because when you crack these out, plastic goes flying everywhere. In recent years, I'll put the slabs in this plastic bag, and then when I do crack them, plastic shards aren't flying all over the place, and I feel comfortable doing it pretty much anywhere. So if you want to employ that technique, I'm going to be doing it today to show you. But you really don't need the plastic bag, but it does make it nice for cleanup because you'll be looking for those little shards of plastic forever, especially if you have like a carpet or something. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with this PSA slab. And before I do put it in my plastic bag, I want to show you what we're going to be doing here, just so it's clear and it's not obscured by that plastic bag. I'm basically going to be taking my tile cutters and making a cut right here. maybe a little angled like this. But the idea is we want to cut enough here that we can get our flathead screwdriver under this plastic, right? It's mainly just to get in between these two pieces, because pretty much every slab has this. They have two pieces of plastic. So you have your back piece and your front piece. So instead of what you saw earlier with chasing cardboard where they crack down the middle and they're kind of removing the card that way by taking two pieces off like that, we're going to be removing the front and the back. And that's how it's actually sealed from the factory. So I find that to be a little bit more safe, because you're actually taking it apart the way it was sealed, and it comes apart a little bit easier in my experience. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to put my card into the plastic bag here, and I want to seal it up a little bit here. Not enough that I can't get my tile cutters in there, but just to avoid any more plastic flying around. And then, as you can see here through the plastic, hopefully, we're just going to crack this corner. So get some pretty good leverage on it and then just crack down pretty hard. Here's the part where you want to kind of take your time, but the goal is to get it between those two pieces of plastic. So for the label, when you're up near the label, you can kind of pry up, and that's how I'd get it started. Okay. But after you've come across, I would be very, very careful about prying up. Now when you get over like this, you can move your screwdriver over a bit. I suggest that you start turning it instead of prying up, because you have less of a tendency to run it across the card, which is something you definitely don't want to do. So now we've got the two halves separated at the top, but I like to go a bit further. You might go ahead and just pull them apart like this. A lot of people do. They just kind of get it to that point and start pulling it apart. I actually like to go down the side of the card a little bit. So I'll put my screwdriver in right here. You have to be very careful with this though. So I'm gonna actually take this plastic bag away. And if you do this, be very, very careful that you're only turning these screwdrivers. So I run it along the edge. Again, just being very careful that I'm not going towards the card. And I just turn it as I go down the edge. Again, this might take some time to perfect. So I would actually suggest doing this on like a lower grade card that you're not as concerned about. So this one has a little bit, I'm gonna take the label out here. This one has a little bit of a odd crack there, which is okay. We're gonna try to pry it up a little bit more here so we can come down. Yeah, we're just gonna skip that. See how this started cracking here? I feel as if I come down here, it's not gonna be the greatest thing. So I felt like we've got pretty good amount here. We're down to here. We're down to here. We're just gonna try to take the two pieces off. Be careful with this and take your time, because the quicker you go, the more tendency you have to make a crack down like the middle like this, which isn't the end of the world, but we're just gonna take the two pieces and try to peel them away. That's what we're gonna do right now. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just pull the card out. I think I've got it enough here. It didn't come out in two pieces, but it's okay. I think I've got it enough that I can just pull it out. A lot of times this will happen. Interestingly enough, you want to get the two pieces off, but if it cracks weird like this, sometimes you just have to do what you got to do to get it out. So I just pulled it out. I do typically like when they pull apart, you know, you get the two halves. But see, if I had the card in there and I was doing that, I didn't work it down far enough here, may have damaged it by taking that piece coming down the middle. So I just did what I needed to do to get the card out. Hopefully the BGS slab or maybe the CSG, I can show you getting the two halves. But it's actually kind of nice that you saw that, because sometimes you got to improvise with this. I do recommend that you have some penny sleeves on hand, because when you do get the card out, you can put it right into a penny sleeve and set it off to the side nice and secure. There we go. That'll be going in my binder. So despite that not really going to plan, it came out okay, and I got the card out. All right, so next up, BGS. So cracking down the middle to where it's chasing cardboard did, it's actually better to do on BGS in my opinion, because first of all, you have the inner sleeve for BGS cards. So when you do crack down the center, if you're trying to pull two pieces apart, you have that extra protection with the sleeve in there. That's again, maybe a more advanced technique that I'd say work your way up to. But in this one, we're going to do the same method that we did for PSA, where we're going to be cracking the corner out, turning our screwdriver down the side to pop the two halves. So we'll seal up the bag a little bit from the corner to keep the plastic from flying all over the place. This is a little bit different than PSA. BGS are a little bit thicker plastic, so you might have to use more force for this. But here we go, same thing, cracking the corner. All right, so let's take a look. So that wasn't too bad. I don't feel like I'm going to be able to get my screwdriver in there, so I'm going to try it again. Always make sure that you're doing up by the label. All right, that's a little better. So you can actually see the label coming through a little bit here, so that's pretty good. All right, so I'll just do the turn method here. It's pretty tight, so I'm just going to turn throughout. You could lift up here a little bit too, as long as you're lifting away from the card. Come down the side a little bit here. Again, be very careful when you do this. You have the tendency to shoot the screwdriver down the card. Don't do that. If you use the turn method like I'm doing right here, where I'm turning it, you have less of a chance of doing that. And then we're going to come in from this side, lift up a little bit. And this one is pretty nice. We're going to be able to get both pieces off. I may not even run my screwdriver down the side of this one because, as you can tell, it actually came down about halfway on both sides. So I feel confident that if I just pull it apart, there you go. There's the example of two halves coming off relatively easy. Now, a lot of times that may not happen. You may have to run down the side. That's always an option, which I did show you there. But sometimes you get lucky, get in from the label, and they just come apart. Again, we do have this inner sleeve. So until I put this one on my binder, I'm just going to leave it in the sleeve. But if you did want to remove this inner sleeve, what I suggest doing is just kind of pushing the card down to the bottom here, and then taking a pair of scissors and running along the edge, just real close to the edge so you're not making your way near the card, and then you can just pull it out like that. All right, last up, we got the CSG slab, and I've never done one of these, so this is going to be a learning experience. And I'll probably, I mean, these are like larger labels, so I might even go down a little further than I normally do on like PSA or BGS, and just see what happens. All right, if you can see into here, here's where I decided to make my cut, about halfway down the label here. All right, it's not too bad. Cracked pretty much like maybe a PSA slab. And again, we're just going to come into the label. We're going to just turn our screwdriver like this. Let's see if I can, as you can see here, it kind of split here and gave me some access to the bottom area, so I just pushed down on that. And I think we're going to be able to pop this one without even going down the side. And again, you know, like that method where I was going down the side turning, you really only have to do it if you can't do this method. But the goal is to get the two halves off, basically, in whatever way you can do it. And we're just prying up, and I can tell right now that I'm just going to be able to pull these apart. And yep, there we go. So CSG, pretty easy. That was probably the easiest of the bunch. And we got the card out, looks great. Again, I'm going to go ahead and put it in a penny sleeve. And we're done. I definitely appreciate you watching the video. I hope that was educational. We did struggle a little bit with the PSA slab, but again, that's kind of good because it shows you that you can't always expect these just to go super smooth. I've been cracking cards for years, and there's a lot of times where you just have to improvise. Like I said, it's going to crack a little bit oddly. It'll crack maybe diagonally on the case itself, and you just have to get through it and just take your time, be really careful, and you'll get your cards out, and then you can do whatever you want with them after that. You know, maybe you just wanted to get your card out and see it the way it was meant to be viewed as it came out of the pack. You know, a lot of times we put emphasis on these cases. The difference between a 9 or a 10 could be tens of thousands of dollars in some cases. But at the end of the day, these are just pieces of cardboard, and feel free to do whatever you want with them for your own collection. So thanks again for tuning in, and I will catch you on the next one.